I saw a clip from the Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where it showed a depiction of Bruce Lee fighting some character in the film played by Brad Pitt. And I was taken by that particular fight scene, or brief fight scene, as it were. And I was disappointed again, and I've said this in time past. I was disappointed at how Tarantino did not properly portray Bruce Lee's character in his film. Now, I've heard people say in time past that Bruce Lee was a punk, a cocky, arrogant individual who went for bad. But 99.9% of the world knows that this is not true about Bruce Lee. Now, I've also said in time past, it depends on in what context we're using the term cocky or arrogant. We know that arrogance can be defined as very self-centered and selfish and even malevolent on some level, and where an individual who is very narcissistic thinks that they are better than everyone else and that the sun rises and sets on them and that's it and that's all. But that was not Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a humble gentleman. Bruce Lee came up in Hong Kong streets, uh, dealing with gang issues and so forth, and he did have a temper. We acknowledge this. This is old news. That's understood. But that has nothing to do with Bruce Lee, the person, the individual, who grew up into a very mature, respectful, and very talented martial arts master and even actor, because he began his acting career as a child. Now, Bruce Lee, as the arrogant aspect goes, was like this. He knew that what he did was real, martial arts related. He knew that he was the real deal. Now, if you want to call that arrogance, go ahead. What I mean by that is this: he put the time in, he put the countless hours and years into his training, the devotion and dedication, burning the midnight oil, studying his craft, and he was a perfectionist at heart. He trained during that age of his popularity or developing popularity much harder than the most martial artists during that time. That is how he is celebrated now as the greatest martial artist of the 20th and the 21st century. And again, to the credit of many masters before him and even during the time that he lived, there were people as good as and even better than Bruce Lee. But they did not surface when he surfaced, for whatever their reasons were. Either they were somewhere in the Himalayan mountains or some similar place training, and they believed not divulging their particular arts and crafts to the world. They didn't want it public. Those individuals did exist. Those individuals still do exist. Howbeit, Bruce Lee, being open minded, he felt like and believed that our Chinese arts, more specifically, don't belong just to us. They belong to anyone who wants to learn it. Why are we holding all of these thousands of years of tradition and not sharing our craft, our art, with the Western world or the world by and large? That's where he was coming from. So he had white students, he had black students, he had people from all different types of groups and upbringings, and he taught martial arts to them, irrespective of where they came from. So this was one of the things that made him a great man. He was also a philosopher. So that's well and duly noted. So back on this fight scene in Tarantino's film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Had that been a real situation, Bruce Lee would have never approached it as reckless as the Chinese actor did in the film. He's thumping his nose and going through the cat whining little scenario and so forth, and he approached the Brad Pitt character, you know, reckless. Bruce Lee would have never done that. He was a tactician. He was an analytical genius. He would stand there and he would size the individual up. He would not just abruptly just run into someone like that guy did in the film. or the film clip. So, not a good depiction of Bruce Lee. Had he been in that scenario or that situation, he would have dismantled that other individual, and it would have not ended up the way that it did in the film. So, I love Quentin Tarantino's film works. Let me give him credit and kudos for that. No problem with that. But in this particular film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, his depiction and characterization of the late great Bruce Lee, and I say again, great Bruce Lee, did not do him any justice at all. So you can leave your comment in the comment section below and let me know what you thought about the fight scene, and do you think that was a correct or proper depiction of Bruce Lee's character and or skill for that little segment that they showed. That was it, and that was all. This is Brother Teacher. I'm out.